The last light of Serenthus. Ambassador Kithara stood motionless before the observation dome of Orbital Haven 9. Her luminescent skin, normally bright with the soft blue glow of her people, had dimmed to almost nothing. 6 slender fingers pressed against the transparent barrier as she watched her world die below. Serenthus had been paradise. The Draxan Collective had spent 12,000 years building their civilization. They had created floating cities that drifted through golden clouds. They had grown crystal gardens that stretched across entire continents. They had developed technologies that healed wounds and extended life. They had believed that knowledge and peace would protect them from the darkness between stars. They had been naive. The shadow that devoured worlds. The Vorith horde had arrived 6 weeks ago. Their warships had blocked out the sun. Thousands upon thousands of vessels, each one bristling with weapons, each one carrying soldiers bred for conquest and cruelty. The Vorith were not like the mindless swarms that plagued other regions of space. They were intelligent. They were organized. They were patient. They did not simply destroy civilizations. They broke them first. They enslaved the survivors. They fed on the suffering of others like it was oxygen. Kithara had watched the first cities fall. She had seen the evacuation ships destroyed one by one. She had heard the screams transmitted from the surface as the Vorith ground forces marched through streets that had never known war. Now only 3 shield-protected settlements remained. The shields would fail within days. A voice in the darkness. Ambassador. The voice came from behind her. It was Elder Thessan, the oldest member of their council. His glow was steady despite everything, maintained by centuries of discipline. The council has assembled. There is something we must discuss. Kithara did not turn. What is there to discuss, Elder? We have sent signals to every allied species within range. None have responded. They are afraid. If they come to help us, the Vorith will simply add them to their conquest. That is true, Thessan said. But there is one species we have not contacted. One option we have not considered. Kithara's glow flickered. A cold sensation spread through her body. She knew somehow what Thessan was about to say. The thought filled her with a different kind of fear entirely. You cannot mean. She began. The Terrans, Thessan said. The humans. The council's terror. The council chamber erupted. Have you lost your mind? Councillor Veth demanded. His skin flashed angry red. The humans are the reason the quarantine zone exists. No species has made contact with them in over 800 years. And for very good reason. I am aware of the history, Thessan replied calmly. Are you? Councillor Mirth rose from her seat, her voice shaking. Do you remember what happened to the Siloxus? They accidentally damaged a human cargo vessel. Accidentally. The humans hunted them for 5 years. 5 years. Until the Siloxus homeworld formally surrendered and paid reparations that bankrupted their entire civilization. I remember, Thessan said. And the Kornoth expansion? Another councillor added. The Kornoth were a warrior race. They prided themselves on conquest. They thought they could challenge human territory. The humans did not just defeat them. They erased them. Every colony. Every outpost. Every ship. The Kornoth no longer exist as a species because they threatened humanity once. Thessan let them speak. He let them list the horrors. The wars. The extinctions. The absolute and merciless violence that humans brought to anyone who crossed them. When silence finally returned, he spoke again. Everything you say is true. Humans are violent beyond reason. They are aggressive beyond understanding. They come from a death world where life evolved to kill other life in countless creative ways. They domesticated predators. They modified their own genetics for war. They invented weapons that can shatter moons, and they have used them. Then why would you even suggest this madness? Councillor Veth demanded. Thessan's glow intensified slightly. Because I have studied them. For 200 years, I have studied every piece of human information that exists in our archives. Their history, their culture, their stories, and I have discovered something strange. Something that does not fit their reputation as monsters. What? Kithara asked softly. They protect the weak. The monster's heart. The council fell silent. It is buried deep within their nature, Thessan continued. Beneath all the violence and aggression. When someone helpless truly asks for aid, humans find it almost impossible to refuse. They have words for it. Honor. Duty. Compassion. They have fought wars not for territory or resources, but simply because innocents were suffering somewhere. That makes no sense, Councillor Mirth said. How can the same species that exterminated the Kornoth also protect the weak? I do not fully understand it myself, Thessan admitted, but I believe it is true. The Kornoth attacked them. The Siloxus wronged them. The species that humans destroyed all had one thing in common. They were aggressors. They were threats. But those who came to humanity as supplicants, as victims, as those in need of protection? There are stories of humans dying by the thousands to save species they had never met, simply because those species asked for help. Kithra turned from the window. Her glow had changed color slightly. Something that might have been hope or might have been terror flickered within her. And if you are wrong, she asked, if they come and decide to conquer us instead? Or if they simply ignore our plea? Thessan spread his hands in acceptance. Then we are no worse than we are now. We will die either way. But at least this way we have a chance. The message. Kithra walked alone to the communications center. She had refused all company. If she was about to invite monsters into their home, she wanted to face those monsters herself. The distress beacon was simple technology. It would broadcast across vast distances, translating automatically into any language its receivers understood. She programmed the coordinates for human space, a region that most maps simply labeled as Quarantine Zone, Do Not Approach, and began recording. This is Ambassador Kithra of the Draxon Collective. Her voice was steady. She would not let it shake. We are under attack by the Vorath Horde. Our defenses have fallen. Our people are being enslaved and murdered. We have no one else to turn to. She paused, gathering herself. We know what you are. We know what you have done. We know why the galaxy fears you. But we also know that you have helped others before. Those who truly needed protection. Those who had nowhere else to go. Her glow dimmed with emotion she could not control. We are dying. Our children are dying. Everything we have built for 12,000 years is being destroyed. Please, if there is any mercy within your species, any honor, any compassion, please help us. We will pay any price. We will accept any terms. We simply want our people to survive. She stopped the recording. She listened to it once. It sounded exactly as desperate as she felt. She sent the beacon. The silence. For 3 days nothing happened. The Vorath continued their advance. The shields around the remaining cities weakened. More Draxon died every hour or worse were captured. Kithra watched from the observation dome, waiting for a response that she increasingly believed would never come. Perhaps the humans had not received the message. Perhaps they had received it and simply did not care. Perhaps Thessan had been wrong about everything. On the morning of the 4th day, Technician Lyros burst into her quarters. His glow was cycling rapidly through colors she had never seen. Fear and excitement and disbelief all mixed together. Ambassador. A ship. A ship has come. Kithra was moving before he finished speaking. The reckoning. The observation dome was crowded when she arrived. Every council member, every dignitary, every survivor on the station had gathered to see the impossible sight. It was one ship. One ship against an armada of 50,000. Kithra pushed through the crowd until she could see clearly. The vessel was ugly by Draxon standards. Blocky and angular, covered in what looked like battle scars and improvised repairs. It had no elegance. No grace. It looked like violence given physical form. On its hull, in bold letters that the translator rendered into Draxon script, was painted a name, The Reckoning. One ship, Counselor Veth whispered beside her. After everything they sent one ship. A communication signal chimed. Someone opened the channel. This is Captain Marcus Cole of the Terran strike vessel Reckoning. The voice was male, deep and unnervingly calm. We received your distress signal. Sorry about the delay. We were in the middle of something else. Is this Ambassador Kithra? Kithra stepped forward to the console. Yes, I am Kithra. Captain, I am grateful beyond words that you have come. But I must ask, is this all? Is one ship all your people could spare? There was a pause. Then a sound came through the speakers that made everyone freeze. It was rhythmic, almost aggressive. The translator labeled it as laughter. One ship is all you need, Ambassador, Captain Cole said. Trust me on that. Now we're going to need everything you have on these Vorath. Numbers, positions, capabilities. Send it over and we'll get started. Get started? Kithra repeated. Captain, there are 40 million Vorath soldiers on the surface. 50,000 warships in orbit. Your single vessel cannot possibly. Ambassador. The captain's voice remained calm, but something in it made Kithra stop speaking immediately. We know what we're doing. Just send the data. Stay out of our way. And watch. The channel closed. Kithra stood frozen, staring at the console. Around her, the council members murmured in confusion and despair. They had begged for salvation. They had received one battered ship and a captain who laughed at impossible odds. Elder Thessan appeared at her side. His glow was strange. Not fear exactly. Not hope exactly. Something between. "What should we do?" he asked. Kithra watched the human ship begin its descent toward the burning planet. It was alone against an army that had crushed everything the Draxan could field. It should have been suicide. But something about that laugh. Something about the captain's absolute certainty. "Send them everything," she said quietly. "Every piece of tactical data we have. Every scan, every report, every analysis." And then? Kithra's glow shifted to a color none of them recognized. "Then we watch what happens when monsters meet monsters." The reckoning continued its descent. Behind it, the Vorath armada began to move. Thousands of ships turning toward this tiny, impossible challenge. Below, on the burning surface, millions of soldiers looked up as a single human vessel dropped through the clouds. None of them knew what was coming. None of them could have imagined. The Vorath's amusement. Supreme Commander Thexus of the Vorath Horde watched the human ship descend through the atmosphere of Serenthus. His mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among his kind. "One vessel," he said to his bridge crew. "The great and terrible humans send one vessel to face the Horde." He leaned back in his command throne, his armored carapace gleaming under the harsh lights. "I had heard they were arrogant. I did not realize they were also suicidal." "Orders, Supreme Commander?" his lieutenant asked. Thexus considered. He had heard the stories about humanity, of course. Every species in the galaxy had. The quarantine zone. The extinct civilizations. The absolute and pitiless violence. But stories grew in the telling. Reality was always smaller than legend. Let them land, he decided. Let them see what they face. When they try to flee, destroy them. I want the galaxy to see that humans bleed and die like any other species. His lieutenant bowed and relayed the orders. Far below, the reckoning touched down in the middle of a burning wasteland that had once been a Draxan agricultural center. Smoke rose from destroyed fields. Bodies littered the ground. Vorath assault forces had moved through this area 3 days ago, leaving nothing alive. It was, Captain Cole had decided, the perfect landing zone. 400 against 40 million. The cargo bay doors of the reckoning opened slowly. Ambassador Kithra watched from the orbital station, every sensor focused on the human ship. She expected to see thousands of soldiers pouring out. She expected massive war machines. She expected something that would make sense against 40 million enemy troops. What she saw made her glow flicker with confusion. 400 humans. Just 400 walking out in neat formations. They wore black armor that seemed to drink in light. They carried weapons she did not recognize. They moved with a precision that spoke of endless training. And something else emerged with them. Animals. Large four-legged creatures with metal plating grafted to their bodies. The translator identified them as dogs, and marked them as a Terran companion species. But these were not companions. These were weapons. Kithra could see it in the way they moved. In the gleam of their enhanced eyes. In the size of their teeth. 400 soldiers, Counselor Veth said beside her. They have sent 400 soldiers to face 40 million. This is not a rescue mission. This is a gesture. A meaningless gesture to make themselves feel noble before they abandon us. Kithra did not respond. She was watching Captain Cole, who had emerged from his ship last. He was speaking to his soldiers. The audio sensors caught fragments of his words. Know what we're dealing with? Vorath, slavers, conquerors. The kind of monsters who hurt others because they enjoy it. He paused, looking at each soldier in turn. Today we show them there's always a bigger monster. Today we remind the galaxy why they put up the quarantine zone in the first place. Today we make these bastards regret ever existing. He raised one armored fist. HORH. 400 voices answered as one. HORH. Then they charged. The first wave. The nearest Vorath forward base was 6 kilometers away. It held 30,000 troops, heavy armor, air support, and commanders who had conquered 100 worlds. The humans covered the distance in 7 minutes. They did not march. They did not advance cautiously. They ran directly at the enemy position like predators chasing wounded prey. The Vorath sentries saw them coming. They had time to send warnings. They had time to form defensive positions. They had time to feel a strange and unfamiliar sensation creeping up their spines. It felt almost like fear. But that was ridiculous. There were only 400 of them. The humans hit the defensive line like a physical force. They did not slow down. They did not seek cover. They simply crashed into the Vorith positions and started killing. Kithra had never seen anything like it. Human weapons fired bolts of energy that punched through Vorith armor like paper. Human blades cut through carapace and flesh with terrifying ease. Human soldiers moved with speed and coordination that seemed impossible. But more than their technology, more than their training, was their ferocity. They were not fighting like soldiers. They were fighting like something older. Something primal. Something that had evolved on a world where weakness meant death. One human, a female with markings on her armor that indicated rank, was surrounded by 20 Vorith warriors. Her weapon had stopped functioning. She was wounded in multiple places. Any other species would have surrendered or collapsed. She pulled a blade from her belt, screamed something in her native tongue and attacked. When the fight ended, she was still standing. The 20 Vorith were not. The dogs of war. The modified dogs spread out through the enemy formation like ghosts. The Vorith had never encountered anything like them. They were used to fighting civilized species. Species that relied on technology and tactics. Species that could be predicted and countered. The dogs did not fight like soldiers. They fought like animals. Like the hunting beasts of old Earth that humanity had shaped and modified over thousands of years. One massive dog, larger than the others, led the pack. Its teeth were reinforced with metal alloys stronger than armor plating. Its muscles had been enhanced to deliver killing force with every bite. Its eyes glowed with the light of neural implants that connected it to its human handlers. The Vorith called it a demon. The humans called it Rex. Rex crashed into a Vorith artillery position with 3 other dogs at his flanks. The Vorith gunners tried to turn their weapons on this new threat. They were too slow. Rex tore out the throat of the first gunner before the soldier even finished turning. His pack mates dismantled the rest. Across the battlefield, other dogs were doing the same. Disrupting supply lines. Taking out commanders. Spreading chaos and terror through Vorith formations that had never known anything but conquest. The breaking point. Supreme Commander Thexus stopped laughing after the first hour. By the second hour, he was demanding constant updates from his commanders on the surface. The updates were not good. Supreme Commander, Forward Base 17 has fallen. Forward Base 23 is not responding. We have lost contact with the 4th Armored Division. The humans are advancing on our command center. Thexus slammed his clawed fist against his throne. How? There are only 400 of them. We have 40 million soldiers. Sir, his lieutenant said carefully, we are beginning to receive visual feeds from survivors. The humans? They do not fight like any species we have encountered. They take wounds that should kill them and continue fighting. They adapt to our tactics faster than we can change them. And they do not retreat. They do not surrender. They simply keep coming. Thexus pulled up one of the visual feeds. He watched a human soldier take a blade through his stomach. He watched that soldier grab the arm of the Vorith who had stabbed him, break it in 3 places, and then beat the Vorith to death with its own severed limb. All while the human was still bleeding. All while the human was smiling. For the first time in his conquest of 70 worlds, Supreme Commander Thexus felt something cold move through his blood. He felt afraid. The galaxy watches. Ambassador Kithra had stopped dimming. Her glow was bright now. Brighter than it had been in weeks. The entire station was watching. The entire surviving population of the Draxon Collective was watching. Every sensor, every camera, every drone that they still controlled was focused on the impossible battle below. The humans were winning. It made no sense. It defied every law of warfare that the Draxon understood. 400 soldiers should have been crushed in minutes. Instead, they were carving a path of destruction through the Vorith army. How is this possible? Elder Thessan asked softly. Kithra shook her head. I do not know. I do not understand how any of this is possible. On the tactical display, she watched the human forces divide into 3 groups. One group continued the direct assault, keeping the Vorith focused on them. The second group circled around to attack supply and communication lines. The third group, led by Captain Cole himself, pushed straight toward the Vorith Central Command. They are going for the commanders, Thessan realized. Cut off the head and the body will fall. The Vorith have hundreds of commanders on the surface. Yes, but look at who the humans are targeting. Kithra looked closer. Thessan was right. The humans were not killing randomly. They were targeting very specific Vorith. Officers. Coordinators. The soldiers responsible for organizing and directing the larger force. They are not trying to kill all 40 million, she said slowly. They are trying to break the chain of command. To create chaos. And it is working. The final push. Captain Marcus Cole reached the Vorith Command Center at sunset. The massive structure had been built from the ruins of a Draxan administrative building. Vorith banners hung from its walls. Slaves in chains were visible through the windows. Guards surrounded it in dense formations. Cole and his assault team numbered 47. They had started with 60. "Sir," Lieutenant Santos said beside him, "we're outnumbered about 500 to 1 here." Cole nodded. "Better than the odds we faced this morning. Sir, with respect, you are completely insane. That's why they pay me the medium bucks, Lieutenant." He checked his weapon. "On my signal we breach. Everyone knows their targets. Kill the officers, free the slaves, make these bastards regret being born. And if we don't make it out?" Cole smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Then we make sure they never forget we were here." He raised his hand. The team tensed. "Go." Victory's price. 23 humans did not survive the assault on the command center. 23 soldiers who had followed Captain Cole into the heart of enemy territory. 23 warriors who had fought knowing they might not come back. But the command center fell. Supreme Commander Thexus tried to flee when the humans breached his inner chamber. He made it 3 steps before Captain Cole put a blade through his back. "Wait," Thexus gasped as he fell. "We can negotiate. I can give you wealth, territory, power. The Horde will." "The Horde is finished," Cole said. He twisted the blade. "You made a mistake, Commander. You enslaved innocents. You made them beg for help. And they called us." He leaned close to Thexus's face. "We always answer." The aftermath. With their leadership shattered, the Vorith army collapsed. Some units tried to maintain cohesion. The humans hunted them down. Some units tried to flee off-world. The Reckoning intercepted them. Some units surrendered. The humans accepted their surrender. They were not monsters who killed the helpless. They were monsters who protected them. Ambassador Kithara descended to the surface 3 days later, when the fighting was finally over. She walked through ruins that had once been her people's cities. She saw Draxan survivors emerging from hiding. She saw Vorith prisoners being loaded onto transport ships. And she saw the humans. They were gathered near their ship, tending to their wounded, counting their dead. 37 soldiers had fallen. 37 out of 400. Against 40 million. Captain Cole saw her approaching and walked out to meet her. "Ambassador," he said. "Captain." Her glow was complex. Gratitude and awe and something else. Something like fear but warmer. "I do not have words for what you have done." "You don't need words. You asked for help. We came. That's how it works." "But why? Why would you risk so much for strangers? We have avoided your species for centuries. We have treated you as monsters." Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then he shrugged. "Because someone needed help. Because innocents were dying. Because we could make a difference." He paused. "That's who we are, Ambassador. That's who we've always been. We're monsters, sure. But we're your monsters now. And nobody hurts what we protect." Kithara stood in silence as Captain Cole walked back to his people. The galaxy would hear about this. The story would spread. The quarantine zone would change. Species would begin to understand that humanity was not simply violence and destruction. They were also protection, salvation, hope for those who had none. They were the monsters who answered when others called for help. And in a galaxy full of darkness, that made all the difference. The end.